What if the real clock of aging isn't ticking in our cells, but in our minds? Carl Jung argued that time, as we experience it, isn't just a linear sequence of days. It's a psychological phenomenon, a subjective river that flows differently for every soul. In Jung's vision, two people of the same age could live in radically different temporal realities. One might feel ancient at 30, another might feel vibrant at 70. The difference, inner time. The concept of psychological time isn't new, but Jung gave it weight in the conversation about health and longevity. He noticed that individuals who lived in constant anticipation of the future, chasing success, avoiding failure, fearing aging, burned through life more quickly. Their bodies followed the tempo of their anxiety. Their immune systems, hormones, and sleep cycles mirrored their stress. Meanwhile, those who cultivated a relationship with the present, who embraced the archetype of the wise one, or the hermit, seemed to slow down internally. Their days stretched, their hearts calmed. They aged differently, not because of better genes, but because they lived outside the panic of the ticking clock. There's a reason why monks often appear decades younger than their biological age. They do not live by hours and deadlines, but by rhythms of meaning. Jung saw this as a psychic technology. Those who master psychological time master the soul's response to aging. In this segment, we explore how your inner sense of time affects your lifespan more than you realize, and how Jung's path to individuation can slow time from within. Imagine that your health problems are not random. Imagine they're letters from your soul. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, the dark, rejected parts of ourselves we pretend don't exist, isn't just about psychology. He believed that these disowned aspects have a biological cost. When we exile parts of ourselves, our anger, our lust, our fear, our grief, they don't disappear. They ferment. They poison us from within. Modern science is only beginning to catch up. Today we know that chronic stress and repressed trauma correlate with everything from autoimmune diseases to cancer. But Jung knew this decades ago. To him, unhealed psychic wounds were seeds of physical illness. The soul, unheard, screams through the flesh. What Jung discovered was shocking. Patients who made peace with their shadows, who acknowledged their darkness, not with shame, but with compassion, often reported spontaneous, physical improvements. Migraines disappeared. Insomnia eased. In some cases, tumors even shrank. Was it placebo? Perhaps. But maybe it was deeper, a soul finally being heard. In this chapter, we descend into the underworld of the psyche. We'll hear stories of people who met their inner monsters and lived longer for it. You'll discover why confronting, not escaping, your darkness may be the most life-extending act of all. We all wear masks. But what happens when we forget we're wearing them? Jung called this mask the persona. The identity we craft to survive in society. It's the role we play, the face we show, the mother, the doctor, the leader, the good girl, the strong man. These masks are necessary, but when we confuse them with who we really are, they become prisons. And prisons, Jung believed, shorten life. The persona, though useful, limits vitality. It forces us to suppress anything that doesn't match the role. We smile when we want to scream. We work when we want to rest. We pretend when we ache to be real. Over time, this inner conflict drains the soul and the body follows. Jung warned, the longer you live in your persona, the further you drift from yourself. And the self, not the persona, is the wellspring of health. Studies now confirm what Jung intuited. People who live authentically, who break out of social roles and embrace their complex, messy truths, have stronger immune systems, lower stress markers, and better overall health. They may not be the most successful, but they are often the most alive. This segment unveils the quiet war between the ego and the self, and why reclaiming your true identity may not only heal your mind, but give your body a reason to keep living. What if your chronic fatigue, your migraines, your autoimmune flare-ups weren't just medical mysteries, but coded messages from your soul? Carl Jung didn't see illness as a malfunction. He saw it as a symbol, a desperate attempt of the psyche to make itself heard when words and awareness had failed. In his clinical work, he encountered countless individuals who came with no hope left. They had tried everything: pills, procedures, specialists. But nothing changed until they began to listen inward. To Jung, the body is the final canvas of the unconscious. When we ignore emotional pain, repress unresolved trauma, and deny our spiritual emptiness, the body eventually steps in. And it does so with clarity and brutality. It manifests the conflict we refuse to face in waking life. A woman struggling with infertility dreams of drowning children. A man with heart palpitations is stuck in a marriage where love has died. A teen with panic attacks is being forced into a life path that isn't theirs. These are not coincidences. They are symbols, archetypal cries for meaning, for change. But here's the haunting part. Jung believed that if we continue to ignore these signals, the symptoms escalate. First, the whisper, fatigue, then the voice, chronic pain, then the scream, disease. The body will be heard. Yet Jung was not fatalistic. He also saw illness as opportunity, a spiritual summons. We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, he wrote, but by making the darkness conscious. Illness, for Jung, was often the beginning of transformation, a breakdown that precedes a breakthrough. Modern integrative medicine echoes his insights. More and more studies confirm the mind-body link. Stress correlates with inflammation. Trauma alters DNA expression, and unexpressed emotion lodges itself in muscle tissue. The science is finally catching up to the soul. In this section, we explore how listening to your symptoms as symbols might be the most healing act of your life. You'll meet individuals who defied death by embracing their dreams, and you'll discover how your own suffering may be the beginning of a far deeper story, one your soul has been begging you to tell. Have you ever considered that your body might be a myth in motion? Carl. Jung's interpretation of the human body was nothing short of revolutionary. He didn't just see flesh and bone, he saw symbols, metaphors, archetypes embodied in the physical form. To him, the liver wasn't just an organ, it was alchemical. The heart wasn't just a pump, it was the seat of courage, the core of feeling. Every part of the body was layered with meaning. And when something went wrong with that body, Jung didn't ask, "What failed?" He asked, "What is the soul trying to say?" This approach, now dubbed psychosomatic medicine, finds its roots in Jung's deep conviction that the psyche and soma are inseparable. He treated patients whose conditions had baffled traditional medicine: chronic migraines, ulcers, skin conditions, even cancers. And time and again he found that when the inner story shifted, so did the physical symptoms. One case, still studied today, involved a woman with crippling arthritis. Every joint screamed in pain. But as Jung dug into her dreams and unconscious imagery, a pattern emerged. She was paralyzed not just physically, but emotionally, stuck in a marriage where she had no voice, no freedom. Her body mirrored her psychological entrapment. When she began the painful process of separation, not just from her husband, but from her internalized silence, the symptoms began to recede. Jung believed that our organs often speak the language of our inner world. The gut may digest not only food, but guilt. The skin, our boundary with the world, may flare with shame or violation. The lungs, linked to breath and spirit, may constrict under grief. These are not metaphors. They are patterns seen in case after case. Today, with neuroscience and epigenetics, we know that trauma affects brain structure, that stress shrinks telomeres, and that emotion is not abstract. It's chemical, cellular, biological. Jung simply saw this truth long before we had the machines to measure it. In this chapter, we'll journey into the symbolic body. You'll see how understanding the hidden meaning behind physical symptoms can offer a path not just to recovery, but to profound self-knowledge. Because sometimes your pain is not just pain. It is a message written in the oldest language there is, the language of the soul. In the popular mind, libido is reduced to sex drive. But for Carl Jung, libido was something far more expansive. It was psychic energy itself, the very fuel of the human experience. And what happens to that energy, Jung believed, determines not just our mental state, but our physical health and longevity. Imagine your life force as a stream. When it flows freely, you feel alive, creative, purposeful. But when it's blocked by fear, repression, unresolved trauma, it stagnates. The water becomes still and eventually toxic. Jung saw many patients whose energy had stopped flowing, not in a mystical sense, but in a deeply observable one. They were exhausted, directionless, often sick, not because they were lazy or unlucky, but because their libido had nowhere to go. They had shut down creativity, denied their passions, avoided meaningful change. Their souls were dammed up, and the body again paid the price. This concept goes deeper than burnout. Jung believed that when our psychic energy is misdirected, when it's spent maintaining masks, avoiding truths, or sustaining lives that no longer fit, it drains us more than any physical exertion could. It leads to chronic fatigue, lowered immunity, and a slow decay of the will to live. But when we redirect that energy toward what Jung called individuation, becoming our full, true selves, we experience a kind of inner combustion. Vitality returns, sleep deepens, laughter returns, the blood flows differently. Studies in modern psychology echo this. People who live with a sense of meaning and creativity tend to recover faster, age slower, and resist illness more effectively. It's not magic, it's energetic alignment. This chapter reveals how reclaiming your psychic energy can be a radical act of healing. You'll learn how Jung's broader view of libido offers a roadmap to more than just emotional peace. It may hold the key to physical rejuvenation, because when your soul flows freely, your body remembers how to live. What if the most powerful medicine in the world wasn't made in a lab, but forged in the fires of your own inner transformation? Carl Jung believed that the true purpose of life was individuation, the process of becoming the whole of who you are. Not the person your parents expected, not the image society projected, but the complete, integrated self, light and shadow, masculine and feminine, persona and soul, all united. This wasn't philosophy for him, it was survival. Jung saw individuation not just as a path to emotional peace, but as a biological imperative. In his clinical experience, people who avoided the path of inner integration often aged poorly. Their bodies mirrored their fragmentation, their minds deteriorated faster, their lives shortened, not necessarily in years, but in vitality, presence and purpose. To individuate is to reclaim lost energy. Every part of you that you've hidden, your rage, your genius, your fears, your longing, carries psychic energy. And when that energy is repressed, it festers. But when it's acknowledged, integrated and honored, it becomes fuel. It becomes life. Jung noticed a strange thing. Those who pursued this path often experienced spontaneous health improvements. Sleep disorders disappeared. Anxiety diminished. Their posture changed. Their eyes lit up. They began to look and feel younger. Why? Because their soul was finally aligned with their body. They were no longer fighting themselves. Think of it like a fractured mirror. Each piece reflects only part of your truth, but when the mirror is whole, so are you. And in that wholeness, the nervous system relaxes, the immune system restores, the heart, no longer at war, beats freely. This chapter is about transformation, not of symptoms, but of the soul. You'll discover stories of those who found longevity not through treatments, but through truth, because when you stop being half of who you are, you stop living half of a life. Close your eyes, fall asleep, and enter a hospital where the doctors are symbols and the scalpel is metaphor. Carl Jung believed that dreams were not random firings of the brain, but messages from the unconscious, often with urgent information about our psychological and even physical state. To Jung, dreams were the language of the soul, and like any language, they could be interpreted, decoded, and most importantly, trusted. What startled him most was how often dreams anticipated illness. Patients would dream of decaying houses, leaking roofs, or twisted trees, only to be diagnosed with physical ailments months later. The body was breaking down, and the unconscious knew it before the blood tests did. But there was more. Jung also observed that people in deep healing, or those on the path of individuation, often reported dreams filled with renewal, clean waters, open skies, reuniting with lost family. These weren't just feel-good images. They were markers of inner healing, a psychic barometer of the soul's vitality. In one famous case, Jung treated a man who had recurring dreams of suffocating inside a coffin. Months later, the man was diagnosed with a pulmonary condition that had gone undetected. Was it prophecy? Or was it that the soul, being older and wiser than the conscious mind, had already begun to register the body's disintegration? Jung didn't see dreams as answers, but as clues, a roadmap. He trained patients to listen, to draw, to engage with their night visions as if they were sacred texts, because, in a way, they are. This chapter explores how your dreams may already be telling you the truth about your body. Through Jung's most fascinating dream analyses, you'll discover that sleep isn't rest, it's revelation. And sometimes healing begins not in the hospital, but in the depths of a dream. What if getting older isn't a decline, but a sacred initiation? Carl Jung didn't fear old age. In fact, he revered it. Unlike modern society, which sees aging as a loss, a failure of youth, Jung saw it as a return, a homecoming to the self after a lifetime of detours. He believed that the second half of life was not the end of growth, but the beginning of true wisdom. For Jung, the elderly had access to a kind of spiritual clarity that youth could never possess. They had endured archetypal journeys, heroism, heartbreak, sacrifice, love, and now stood at the edge of mystery. This, he said, was not a time to shrink, but to expand, not to fade, but to illuminate. He warned that those who clung to youthful identities, who denied the reality of aging, often grew bitter, depressed, or ill. Their bodies aged, but their souls remained arrested. True longevity, he argued, came from embracing the tasks of elderhood, storytelling, spiritual reflection, and the passing on of wisdom. There is something biologically powerful about purpose. Modern studies show that seniors who feel useful, who teach, mentor, create, or explore, live longer, healthier lives than those who isolate or withdraw. Jung saw this long before it became data. To him, the psyche knows when its work is not yet done, and it gives the body a reason to stay. In this segment, you'll meet individuals who refuse to see aging as decline. They embraced it as destiny. You'll learn what Jung believed we were born to do in the final chapters of life, and how the soul's evolution can be the most vitalizing force of all. Because sometimes the end of youth is the beginning of eternity. You survive a car crash by seconds. You meet the right doctor just before the diagnosis. You discover a book that transforms your life at the exact moment you needed it. Coincidence? Carl Jung wouldn't agree. He called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidence without a causal link, but filled with profound personal significance. For Jung, these moments were not mere luck. They were signs that your inner world and outer reality were momentarily aligned. And astonishingly, he believed these moments often protected, guided, and extended life itself. Imagine the unconscious mind, not as a private prison, but as part of a vast, invisible network, one that communicates with the world around you in symbols, patterns, and pulses of meaning. When we ignore this, we live at random. But when we listen, synchronicity becomes a compass. A life guided by the deeper self is, Jung believed, not only more fulfilled, but potentially longer. He shared stories of patients whose turning points were marked by synchronistic events: the sudden decision to seek therapy after a vivid dream, the random meeting that led to a healing relationship, or even escaping illness after embracing an intuitive nudge. These were not miracles, but messages. And here lies the mystery. Perhaps synchronicity isn't just spiritual poetry. Perhaps it's biological strategy. The soul, when aligned with its path, seems to generate resilience, energy, immunity, a will to live that no supplement can provide. In this chapter, we dive into the science and mystery of synchronicity. You'll learn how moments of deep meaning may do more than shape your story. They may help extend your time to tell it. Religion is often seen as dogma, spirituality as sentiment. But Jung saw something else entirely, a psychic necessity. He didn't preach doctrine. Instead, he studied the role of the divine image in the human psyche. He found that people who cultivated a deep inner spirituality, not necessarily religious but meaningful, often demonstrated astonishing psychological resilience. And more than that, their physical health followed. In his view, the spiritual instinct was not optional. It was embedded in the psyche, an archetype of the self, always seeking connection with something larger. Those who denied this instinct often experienced despair, addiction, or psychosomatic illness, but those who engaged it, through prayer, meditation, art, or nature, seemed to unlock a hidden reservoir of strength. Jung called this the numinous experience, a moment where you touch the infinite, and in doing so, remember who you truly are. These experiences, he argued, rewire the mind. They create peace. They reduce existential anxiety. And in that reduction, the body heals, cortisol drops, blood pressure steadies, the immune system responds. Modern studies support this. People with strong spiritual practices live longer, report better health, and recover faster from trauma, not because of miracles, but because meaning changes biology. This section explores how the soul's yearning for the sacred is not just poetic, it's practical. And in Jung's psychology, the bridge to longevity might be built not only with medicine, but with mystery. As Carl Jung neared the end of his life, he was asked what he thought awaited him after death. His answer was not fear nor certainty, it was awe. I shall not commit the fashionable stupidity of regarding everything I cannot explain as a fraud, he wrote. Jung believed that the psyche, the true self, was not confined to the body. He studied countless cases of near-death experiences, prophetic dreams, and moments of transcendence. He even had his own visions near death, describing landscapes and lights that felt more real than waking life. But more than what comes after, Jung was obsessed with how our view of death shaped how we live. He found that people who feared death often lived small, timid, risk-averse, disconnected. But those who embraced the mystery of it, who lived as if their soul were eternal, carried a vibrancy that defied biology. Jung's final insight was radical. When we make peace with death, we unlock life. The soul that feels eternal does not panic, it does not shrink, it expands. And in that expansion we find vitality, connection, creativity, and yes, even longevity. This final chapter is not about endings, it's about thresholds. You'll hear Jung's final thoughts, his private writings, and reflections from those who carry his legacy. And you'll be asked a question that may change everything. What if your soul already knows how to live forever? As we reach the culmination of our exploration into the profound insights of Carl Jung on the secret of longevity through deep psychology, it's essential to reflect on the journey we've undertaken. We've delved into the intricacies of the human psyche, understanding how individuation, the process of integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of ourselves, plays a pivotal role in achieving a fulfilled and extended life. Jung's emphasis on confronting our shadows, embracing our true selves, and seeking wholeness offers a roadmap to not just a longer life, but a more meaningful one. Throughout this journey, we've seen how aligning with our inner truths can lead to physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. The path of individuation isn't merely a psychological endeavor, it's a holistic approach to living authentically, fostering resilience and nurturing the soul. In this context, it's impossible to ignore the profound parallels between Jung's insights and the timeless truths found in spiritual teachings. One such truth is encapsulated in the verse from the Gospel of John. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. This verse speaks to the ultimate act of love and the promise of eternal life, a concept that resonates deeply with Jung's exploration of the eternal aspects of the human psyche. The love described in this verse is not conditional or limited. It's an all-encompassing, transformative love that offers hope and redemption. Just as Jung believed in the necessity of confronting and integrating all parts of ourselves to achieve wholeness, this divine love invites us to bring our entire being, flaws, fears, and all, into a relationship with the Creator. Accepting this love is akin to embarking on the ultimate journey of individuation, where we not only come to know ourselves, but also experience the profound connection with the divine. It's an invitation to step into a life of purpose, peace, and eternal significance. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you to reflect on it deeply. Consider the areas of your life where you're seeking meaning, healing, and connection. Know that you're not alone in this journey and that there's a path that leads to true fulfillment. If you feel compelled to explore this further, I invite you to open your heart to the possibility of a relationship with Jesus Christ. Embracing him as your Savior is not about adhering to a set of rules, but about entering into a transformative relationship that brings peace, purpose, and eternal life. To begin this journey, you might offer a simple prayer from your heart, expressing your desire to know him and to experience his love and guidance in your life. Remember, this is a personal journey, and it's about your unique relationship with the divine. As we conclude, I want to thank you for joining me on this exploration of the depths of the human psyche and the heights of divine love. If this content has touched you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue to create meaningful content that inspires and uplifts. Feel free to share your thoughts, experiences, or questions in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation and support each other on our respective journeys toward wholeness and fulfillment. May you find peace, purpose, and profound joy as you navigate the path ahead.